Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for a quick update on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today in the Workplace Minute, we're going to talk about a crisis in the U.S. that's increasingly shaping workforce participation, retention, and equity, the caregiving crisis, and how its pressures are disproportionately pushing women out of the workforce and straining employers. Let's break it down. Caregiving is not a niche experience anymore. According to the latest Caregiving in the U.S. report from AARP and the National Alliance for Caregiving, an estimated 63 million Americans, nearly 1 in 4 adults, now provide care to a family member or loved one, a nearly 50% increase over the last decade. This includes care for children, aging parents, or relatives with chronic health conditions, and many caregivers are providing support that often rivals work in time and intensity. Nearly 1 in 4 caregivers reports providing 40 or more hours of care per week, and many have been doing this for years. These are unpaid laborers in what some advocates call the invisible workforce, one that's under tremendous strain with very limited systemic support. And many of these caregivers are also trying to maintain jobs at the same time. Research shows that over 70% of working caregivers suffer work-related difficulties because of their caregiving responsibilities, such as needing to rearrange their schedules, reduce their hours, or take unpaid leave. And employers may not realize it, but for many employees, caregiving isn't something that happens after work. It's work that often overlaps with employment. The newest national data from Catalyst helps put another piece of the picture together. Between January and August of 2025, more than 455,000 women voluntarily exited the U.S. workforce, and among those women, 42% said caregiving responsibilities, including the high cost and logistical complexity of childcare and dependent care, were the primary factor for their reason to leave the workforce. That made caregiving the single strongest reported factor behind their decision to exit work, outpacing dissatisfaction with pay or career progression in many cases. Women were often left with significantly more likely to have worked in jobs without schedule flexibility, 37% versus 22% for those who stayed employed, underscoring how rigid work structures amplify pressures around caregiving. Taken together, these numbers tell a bigger story about the intersection of work and care in American life. The United States, unlike most other wealthy nations, does not guarantee paid family leave or universal child care access, and long-term care systems for aging loved ones are limited and costly. This gap in public infrastructure forces many families to absorb the burden of caregiving themselves. And within families, women can continue to take on the bulk of caregiving labor. Among the caregivers reflected in national surveys, women comprise the majority, often providing care for both children and older adults simultaneously in what's known as the sandwich generation, while also maintaining much of the household coordination that never gets labeled but takes real time and effort. Being a caregiver doesn't just make daily life more complicated. It has measurable career consequences. Women who step away from the workforce or reduce their hours to handle care responsibilities often lose momentum in promotion pipelines, fall behind in earnings, and may find it difficult to re-enter work at the same level. Employers lose experienced professionals, institutional knowledge erodes, and organizational diversity goals are set back. For HR leaders and business executives, the caregiving crisis calls for action, not just sympathy. And the good news is that research and employer experience point to clear paths forward. Organizations that want to retain their female talent and support caregivers broadly can expand meaningful flexibility, not just token remote days here and there, but real autonomy over work hours, shift timing, and schedules that allow employees to navigate childcare pickups, medical appointments, or elder care emergencies without fear of penalty. And employers can also provide direct care support such as backup care programs, caregiving stipends, partnerships with local care providers, and paid time off specifically earmarked for caregiving emergencies, signaling that caregiving demands are not an aberration, but part of life that the organization expects and plans around. It's also critical to look inward at pay and advancement systems. Women who take time out for caregiving may fall behind in traditional promotion metrics. Intentional pay equity reviews and career planning conversations can help correct that so that caregiving interruptions don't compound into long-term economic disadvantages. Finally, culture matters. when caregivers feel safe discussing their challenges without stigma, when managers are trained to recognize caregiving realities, and when peers can connect and share strategies, organizations can create a workplace where care responsibilities are visible and supported rather than hidden and penalized. The caregiving crisis in the American workplace is not going away, and it's not an abstract policy issue for someone else to solve. It affects real employees, real careers, and real bottom lines. Employers that step up with thoughtful policies and real support, especially for women caregivers, will not just retain talent, but will build more resilient, equitable workplaces for the future of work. Thanks so much for listening, and a big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If this episode made you think about how your organization can continue to support the caregivers in the workplace, please share it with a colleague. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.